What's up, guys? Horror Man back for another review. So today we're going to take a look at the Howling Ultimate Werewolf action figure. So this is new from NECA Toys, and it's based on that classic 1981 original movie. So taking a look at the box here, it's got that classic tagline, just says, "Imagine your worst fear a reality." It says, "The Howling and an Ultimate Werewolf action figure." Of course, you have that classic movie image with the werewolf's hand kind of tearing through some canvas with the screaming woman pictured on the front. You get the same classic logo and that same image on the top. All the credits, logos, and trademarks are on the bottom, along with that UPC code. You get the Howling logo and the NECA logo on the sides. Over to the back, you do get some really cool images of the figure itself, kind of highlighting some of the different head sculpts and interchangeable parts. And then you have that really neat moon backdrop with the Howling logo. You also have a little description at the very bottom of just some of the parts included with the figure. And once you open up the front flap on the box, you can see that it is held in just by that little piece of Velcro. On the left side, you have a really cool image of the figure itself. And on the right side, you can see the figure is clearly displayed with all the interchangeable parts. So this is a pretty exciting release. I'm definitely a fan of this movie and definitely a fan of werewolf figures. So I'm excited to see what NECA's done with the Howling. So let's go ahead and get this out of the box and have a closer look. Before I show you the figure, I did want to show you that NECA actually does include a stand with this one, which we really don't see NECA include a lot of stands with figures. But you do have the base, and then you have two different arms to put onto it. So there's just a little bit of a difference in length depending on how long you want of a post. And then the little arm here, this little clip, can interchange between whichever post you want to use. So if you want to use the longer one or the shorter one, and then you just peg that in to the hole on the bottom of the stand, and it just kind of works like that. So then you could just kind of sit the figure on top here or in the crotch just to peg him in, and then this will help him standing much better. And then you can pose him around, and then you also get a little bit of a backdrop with this. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and start by taking a closer look at the head sculpts. Alright, so taking a look at the first head sculpt here, and this is the one that's on the figure inside of the box. And I guess this would be more of your neutral head sculpt. You do have the teeth showing, but not that howling, open mouth pose. But just looking at some of the finer details here, I really love these radically long ears, definitely what you see in that Howling movie. Really nice paint detail around the face. It's a bit lighter, just kind of like the American Werewolf in London. So it does highlight all the different features, and I like the darkness around the eyes and that snarled brow. You got, of course, the very piercing yellow eyes. It'll be interesting to see if the other head sculpts have the red eyes. I don't think they do, but in the movie they had bright red eyes at some points. The teeth, for the most part, look pretty good. I do think they could have done a little bit better job differentiating the different teeth from each other, especially the front, the two front teeth in between the canines. They kind of blend together a little bit too much for me. But I do love the hair work on here, a lot of sculpting, a lot of texture details that really bring out the look of werewolf hair, which I really like. So overall, it looks really good and definitely what I would expect to see for the Howling werewolves. And just giving you a different angle here. Again, really nice detail in that hair work. I really like the area around the side of the face here. Just really nice details overall. And then here's a quick profile shot of that left side. And again, yeah, you can see just all the different textures of hair. No real differences on the right and left side of the face. No damage or anything like that. It's just going to be your basic Howling werewolf design. But yeah, just the details are so good. And then finally to the back of the head sculpt here. Again, really nice details in the sculpting and all that different hair and the ears. Now, one thing about the back of the head, it's worth noting, you could definitely see all these different separations in the head sculpt for the articulation. and the sculpting. But you really don't see them as you get to like the side and the front. So as you come around to the side even, you can see they start to kind of disappear. So yeah, nice way to hide a lot of those articulation points in that head sculpt. So you do get 2 other head sculpts aside from the one that's included with the figure inside of the box. And I definitely would consider this, again, more of that neutral head sculpt. So the first interchangeable head sculpt you get is very cool, and this is of course going to be your Howling head sculpt. It's literally howling at the moon, or maybe biting one of the victims. But this is a really cool head sculpt, and the eyes, you can tell, are much different. They're like wide open, doesn't have that as angry looking brow. But of course, yeah, you got the teeth all showing with the mouth wide open, and we'll take a look at that a little closer in a second. But you also get this head sculpt, which you can see has, again, more of that like angry brow, kind of like the first one. But with this one, you can see a lot more bloody teeth and really just really awesome paintwork, I'll be honest with you. It's just much different looking than both of the other ones. But my favorite part about this, it has a hinged jaw. So you can actually close the mouth or completely open the mouth, or just go somewhere in between, which is really cool. This was a really cool addition. I think this is actually what's going to win me over with this figure. But let's go ahead and take a look at how to interchange that head sculpt. So you do have multiple layers on here. So you want to try to just grab that first layer, and it just pops off. And what I mean by layers, you can see all these different pieces that can come off here. We'll go ahead and put that first like regular Howl head sculpt on here. And there is a lot of layers, so you gotta get this on. And you really have to pull these parts down like over this bigger peg to get this on. This is the tougher part, I gotta say. It reminds me a lot like Werewolf in London. And here is that open mouth head sculpt. And I do like the look here. Really good sculpting. But yeah, I really do like this head sculpt. It just, again, just doesn't quite stay on the way it's supposed to. Alright, so here's the wolf with the third and final head sculpt. And man, I really love this one. This is definitely going to be the one that I'm going to display with this figure. I mean, I definitely love that first head sculpt. That's going to be my second favorite of these. And don't get me wrong, this other head sculpt, this Howl head sculpt is cool, but it just doesn't want to interchange for some reason. This head sculpt, I feel like this is the one that they actually meant that was going to be the only head sculpt with this figure. Maybe that was the original pitch, because it just fits a lot nicer. I had no problems putting this one on, but this one is just really tough to get on the body. But yeah, I just really like this look overall. It's a nice in-between of the interchangeable head sculpts. And I definitely prefer the snarled brow. And I just really like the paintwork on this. The blood on the teeth just looks awesome. So yeah, this is probably going to be my favorite head sculpt of the 3. And here's a profile of that same hinged jaw head sculpt. And honestly, you can see the articulation in the neck more than you can the jaw. So I do think this is a really good head sculpt. And I do like that the hinged jaw kind of does add a little bit of like kind of action, just like a little. And I think these are really cool head sculpts, especially for, you know, doing photography, some different toy photography. And I really like the brow on this one. I think that's probably the best brow of the 3. But yeah, overall, if I was to choose one, it would definitely be this head sculpt. And I mean, the fact that you can get the different looks is cool. You know, you can get a slightly open mouth, all the way open mouth, fully closed. So really nice options with this figure. I'm actually most happy because they included that, because that was the one thing I was a little disappointed with the American Werewolf in London, that we didn't get that hinged jaw head sculpt. Looking at some of the other details in the figure, starting with the torso here, you do have some really nice detail in those hands. I love the really long fingers, and of course the long fingernails. And you can see the mixture of like hair, like kind of on the back of the hand, but not so much in the fingers. Really nice detail. Just very happy with how that looks. There's some really nice detail on the inside of the hand as well, just really nice line work, different paint, just overall awesome details. You do get some really nice detail work in the torso here, starting with the chest. You can see how this line kind of goes down from the chest down to the crotch area, and you can see the hair on like the arms kind of hangs down a bit, and you can see like the tufts of hair around the bicep and the shoulders. Just really nice details overall. Over to the back, you can see all the different sculpting in the hair, just really good. Definitely has that fluffy type of texture. And you can see how long the arms are, of course. Got a bit of like a tail here. So just really nice details and all the different fur and all the different, textures and details in that body. And finally down to the legs. Again, you can see I have that stand that kind of goes right into the crotch here. And I do recommend using that, but really nice detail in the thighs here. You can see just like the arms, you do have like these kind of longer patches of hair on the thighs, kind of hangs off there, very like fluffy, longer hair. And then you can see the different details in the feet. Very crazy looking legs, like all werewolves. They're a little tough to stand. I always kind of struggle with standing these right. But really nice, nails on here. Very detailed looking, just like the fingernails. There's no peg holes in the bottom of the feet. So before we get to the articulation, I did want to show you that this figure can stand without this. So if you're worried about that, you can actually show it without the figure stand. But I think overall, just like on your, shelves, I would definitely use that stand just as like a safety precaution, because you don't want this one to fall off. The figure really does stand pretty good. And yeah, there's definitely a ton of segments like inside of this sculpt. Again, you can see all the different layers, and yeah, I had a little trouble with those when I was interchanging, the head sculpt, that Howling head sculpt. But it is cool that you have all this, articulation points, because you can go completely up or all the way down, to the side. You can twist the head around at all these different parts. Very similar to the Werewolf in London. It can be a little tricky to match up some of these parts exactly the way it's supposed to be, but for the most part, I think they matched up fine. And again, this is the head sculpt with the articulation, which is really cool. Definitely a bit more action for the action figure, so I like that. So overall, really nice articulation in that head sculpt. Now, because the hair, it will kind of be a little tougher to get the arms to do like a T pose, but that's pretty good. You got some different segments here for like your waist, so you can go like this, little angle, up and down a little bit, move at the shoulder. I thought that was a double hinge. If it is, it's definitely hindered. No, it's not a double hinge, but it's pretty good. Elbow articulation. You can see it gets more than 90. Swivel at the bicep. The legs are weird, you can go front and back, but because of the way they're designed, they're kind of bent. You can bend them, you straighten it out pretty far, so he's pretty tall. So the figure's pretty tall if you straighten the leg out, or you can go with that more classic werewolf pose. To do a kick is kind of weird. But yeah, here's all the different segments. They all move differently. So pretty crazy articulation in the legs, and the figure can split pretty well. So yeah, overall, real nice articulation in this figure, and it's especially good with this different, head sculpt. Aside from the interchangeable head sculpts, you do get some interchangeable hands as well. The hands we've already looked at are those kind of posed hands that are on the figure inside the box. Again, really nice details in those. You do get a fully relaxed set of hands as well. Great details. And then just taking a look at the inner palm here. Again, just really nice details, just like the ones we've already looked at. You do get one other left hand that has a bit more space between like the pointing finger and the thumb. So maybe hold on to something. And then this one actually is a bit more of a, almost like a gripping hand. I guess I would say this is a gripping hand. Again, nice details in that. Maybe the wolf can grip somebody's skull or something with it. But really nice details overall in those different interchangeable hands. Hopefully this goes better than the interchangeable heads, because those were really tough. Okay, yeah, and that's pretty tough. That's a thick peg on there. I'm going to go ahead and put that gripping hand on there. Oof. Alright, and then once that's interchanged, yeah, it's a bit more of like a gripping hand on there, so you can grip one of its prey. For the first comparison, here's the Howling Wolf next to the Creature Replica Louisiana Ragaroo, and then the NECA Toys American Werewolf in London Kessler Wolf. Now you can see that the Kessler Wolf's on all fours, but of course, you know, if you were to stand this one up, it would be pretty close to the same height, if not bigger. And just like the Howling Wolf, the Louisiana Ragaroo, the Creature Replica, also has a hinged jaw, which is pretty cool. Now I have this one on the stand, and I'm going to leave this one on the stand for the remainder of the comparisons, because I don't really have the figure at its tallest anyway, so even if it does add like a tiny bit of height, you could easily do that by just standing the figure up more straight. So let's take a look at some other comparisons. For the next comparison, here's the wolf next to the Lon Chaney original Wolfman, and then of course you have the Loot Crate variation, which kind of looks like the Scooby-Doo version. But you can see how much different in size these guys are. For the next comparison, here's the American Werewolf in London Soldier Werewolf, and then the Captain Brutus from Star Wars Skeleton Crew. And you can see this one definitely towers over both. Here's the Howling Werewolf next to a couple of Ninja Turtles figures, also made by NECA Toys. So you have the Razar from the Secret of the Ooze TMNT movie, and then of course you have the Raphael as the Wolfman, which is really cool. But yeah, this Howling version, even if it wasn't on the stand, definitely is much bigger. Here's a couple more 7-inch scale NECA comparisons for you. So you have the Friday the 13th Part 3 Jason Voorhees with that custom freak Aki mask on there. And then you have the Freddy Krueger from the original 1984 movie. Here's a couple larger NECA figures. Again, still in that 7-inch scale, just big figures. So you got the original Predator, which is a much older figure. It's got some battle damage and whatnot. And then you have Tiny from the original, House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects series. He's leaning a little bit, but you can see he's definitely tall, but Howling Werewolf is still bigger. Here's a fun little cartoon comparison for you. You got the NECA Toys American Werewolf in London figure, and then of course you have one of my favorite werewolf figures of all time. This is the real Ghostbusters werewolf monster, and he was really cool. You can squeeze the arms and get that howling pose again, hinged jaw. But yeah, really cool to see the evolution of werewolves over the years. For the last NECA comparison, here's a couple ladies I think would work really well with a howling, victim or final girl, if there is one really. But you can kind of have Shelley maybe to stand in for Dee Wallace and have April stand in for her friends, so I don't know. But there's a couple females that could scale with your howling figure. And then for the final comparison, here's the Howling Werewolf next to some smaller figures in my collection. Now, I never did open this Altered Beast werewolf. I'm just going to leave him in the package. I just like that artwork. But you can see that figure is definitely much smaller. This is the Mighty Maniacs werewolf. There's a few different color variations for that. And then, of course, the old monster in my pocket werewolf, which was always a cool little figure. So I'm a huge fan of werewolf figures. I really love seeing all these different versions. But yeah, you can see just how big the Howling figure is compared to all these different figures. Alright, so that's my review of the Howling Werewolf Ultimate action figure. And overall, I really do like this figure. I did have some hiccups with interchanging the head sculpts, and that was definitely disappointing and kind of takes me back to when I got that American Werewolf in London figure. It's just very hard to get that head sculpt on. It just doesn't seem like it wants to lock in. But once I put this third head sculpt on with that hinged jaw, it pretty much made up for it. But yeah, I'm very happy with the overall figure, and I think NECA really nailed the look of this werewolf in particular. And even though you don't get any accessories for this figure, I really do like that they included at least enough different hands, and the different head sculpts definitely get the job done for all the different looks that you want for this wolf. So if you want the kind of cleaner look with the open and closed head sculpts, or if you want the kind of bloodier look with the, hinged jaw head sculpt, you get a little bit of everything. And I can't applaud them enough for throwing in that stand. This is definitely a figure that needs it, and I've actually left it on this stand for pretty much the whole review. And it does stand really good. I do think you should adjust the legs to the best height that makes sense for the stand before you put it on here. Try not to adjust the legs too much while it's still attached. You don't want to break that stand, but overall it works really well with this figure, and yeah, it seems to hold on pretty good. So pretty happy with that. Again, no real accessories, but nice to get those interchangeable hands, heads, and that stand. If they made some of the other characters, it would be a pretty cool way to use this Howling license. Marsha Quist especially was a really cool character played by Elizabeth Brooks. She has a very unique look. I think she would make a really cool figure, maybe just like a regular head sculpt, and then one kind of like a mid change with like more of a vampire teeth showing. So thanks for watching my review. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you have a comment or question, leave that in the comment section below. And until next time, guys, see ya.